husband and I are lucky enough to spend precious time each year in Aberdeenshire. And finally, because 10 years ago, I received the great honour.
Camilla stripped the Queen title. You won't believe what happened next. Palace insiders are furious, and King Charles is reportedly devastated by this bombshell decision that's sending the royal family into complete chaos. This stunning announcement has left millions speechless and questioning everything about the monarchy's future. What explosive secret finally came to light? Which royal family member betrayed Camilla? The truth will absolutely shock you.
As I stand before you today, I cannot help but feel the weight of history which surrounds us and which reminds us of the vital parliamentary traditions.
The situation began to unfold when senior members of the royal household received urgent summons to attend what sources describe as an emergency meeting of the highest importance. Those familiar with palace operations noted that such gatherings are exceptionally rare, typically reserved for matters of constitutional significance or family crises that could affect the monarchy's stability. Reports indicate that security measures at Buckingham Palace were heightened to unprecedented levels during this period. Palace staff members have described an atmosphere of unusual tension, with access to certain areas of the building strictly controlled, and communication devices temporarily confiscated from those entering the meeting space. These extraordinary security protocols suggest that palace officials were acutely aware of the sensitive nature of the discussions taking place. The meeting itself took place in a private chamber within the palace that is rarely used for routine royal business. According to sources with knowledge of palace operations, this particular room is typically reserved for the most confidential discussions involving matters of state or internal family affairs that require absolute discretion. The choice of venue appears to have been deliberate, emphasizing the gravity of the situation and the need for complete privacy. Among those summoned to attend were Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, and Prince William, the Prince of Wales. Both figures hold significant influence within the royal family structure and are considered trusted advisors to the king on matters of royal protocol and family governance. Their presence at such a meeting would typically signal that discussions of major importance were taking place. Princess Anne, known throughout her royal career for her direct approach and unwavering commitment to duty, has long been regarded as one of the most respected members of the royal family. Her involvement in high-level discussions often indicates that matters of constitutional or institutional significance are being addressed. Royal commentators have frequently noted her reputation for providing frank counsel to other family members when difficult decisions need to be made. Prince William's participation in the meeting holds particular significance, given his position as heir to the throne. As the future king, his views on matters affecting the monarchy's reputation and stability carry considerable weight. Sources familiar with royal protocol suggest that his presence would be essential for any discussion involving major changes to the structure or composition of the senior royal family. The atmosphere within the palace during this period has been described by staff members as exceptionally tense. Several sources have reported observing unusual levels of activity among senior advisors and private secretaries, with many appearing visibly concerned about ongoing developments. The normally composed demeanor of palace staff seemed notably strained, suggesting that whatever was being discussed carried significant implications for the institution as a whole. During this time, Queen Consort Camilla maintained her regular schedule of public appearances, seemingly unaware of the discussions taking place behind palace doors. Observers noted that she appeared composed and carried herself with her typical dignity during public engagements, showing no outward signs of the storm that was reportedly brewing within the royal household. Those with access to palace corridors during this period have described witnessing unprecedented changes to normal operational procedures. Senior staff members who would typically be involved in routine palace business were reportedly excluded from certain areas, while others found their usual responsibilities temporarily reassigned. These unusual arrangements suggested that extraordinary measures were being taken to maintain secrecy around whatever deliberations were taking place. The meeting reportedly lasted several hours, with participants entering and leaving at different times to avoid drawing attention to the gathering. Security personnel were instructed to ensure that no unauthorized individuals could access the area where discussions were taking place, and additional measures were implemented to prevent any information from being overheard by those not directly involved. Royal historians have noted that such secretive high-level meetings within the monarchy are exceptionally rare in modern times. The last comparable situation occurred during periods of significant constitutional crisis, or when major changes to royal protocol were being considered. The level of secrecy surrounding these discussions suggests that the matter at hand was considered to have potential implications for the monarchy's public standing and internal stability. As news of the unusual palace activity began to circulate among trusted royal correspondents, speculation mounted about what could prompt such extraordinary measures. The involvement of key family members and the heightened security protocols indicated that whatever was being discussed went far beyond routine royal business or minor adjustments to ceremonial procedures. The timing of these events has also drawn attention from royal observers. Coming at a period when the monarchy faced various external pressures and public scrutiny, any major internal developments would inevitably be viewed through the lens of institutional stability and public confidence in the royal family. Palace sources have indicated that the discussions during this meeting were unlike anything experienced by even veteran staff members who had served the royal household through previous periods of difficulty and change. The combination of secrecy, high-level participation, and extraordinary security measures suggested that the monarchy was grappling with a situation that could potentially reshape its structure and public image. The careful orchestration of events leading up to and during this meeting demonstrates the palace's awareness of the potential implications of whatever decisions were being made. Every aspect of the gathering appears to have been planned to ensure maximum confidentiality while bringing together the individuals whose input would be most crucial for addressing the matter at hand. The atmosphere within the private chamber reached a critical point as King Charles III prepared to address the assembled group. According to witnesses present during the meeting, the tension in the room was palpable, with even the most experienced palace officials appearing visibly uncomfortable as they awaited what many sensed would be a momentous announcement. Reports from those in attendance describe the king's demeanor as markedly different from his usual composed public persona. Sources indicate that while his voice remained steady and authoritative, there were subtle signs of the emotional weight he was carrying. Palace insiders noted that this was not the measured tone typically associated with routine royal proclamations, but rather the voice of a monarch grappling with a decision of profound personal and institutional significance. The king began by addressing the fundamental principles underlying the British monarchy, emphasizing the sacred nature of the relationship between the crown and the people it serves. According to those present, he spoke at length about the concept of duty and loyalty, describing these values as the cornerstone upon which the entire institution rests. His words carried particular weight given the context of the gathering and the serious expressions of those listening. Charles reportedly stressed that the monarchy's legitimacy depends entirely on public trust and confidence, explaining that any action or behavior that undermines this relationship poses a direct threat to the institution's survival. Sources indicate that he spoke passionately about the responsibility that comes with royal titles and positions, emphasizing that these honors are not merely ceremonial, but carry with them an obligation to serve the greater good above personal interests. The turning point in the meeting came when the king's attention focused directly on Queen Consort Camilla. Witnesses describe a moment of profound silence as all eyes turned toward her, with the weight of expectation and apprehension filling the room. The king's expression, according to those present, conveyed both determination and what appeared to be personal anguish over what he was about to announce. What followed has been described by multiple sources as one of the most shocking moments in recent royal history. The king reportedly delivered his decision with unwavering clarity, stating that Camilla would no longer hold the title of Queen Consort. The announcement came without lengthy explanation or ceremonial language, presented instead as a definitive royal decree that would take immediate effect. The reaction in the room was immediate and dramatic. Several sources describe audible gasps from those present, with even seasoned palace officials appearing stunned by the magnitude of the announcement. The silence that followed was reportedly profound, broken only by the sound of shifting in chairs as attendees struggled to process what they had just witnessed. For Camilla herself, the moment represented a devastating reversal of fortune. Those who observed her reaction described a woman who had entered the meeting with her characteristic composure, but found herself facing an outcome she had clearly not anticipated. Sources indicate that the color drained from her face as the reality of the king's words began to sink in, her usual mask of royal dignity beginning to crack under the weight of the announcement. The meeting continued with what witnesses describe as a series of additional statements that provided context for the king's decision. According to reports, he referenced concerns that had been raised about actions and behaviors that were deemed incompatible with the role of Queen Consort. These allegations, while not detailed extensively during the meeting, were reportedly serious enough to warrant such drastic action. Princess Anne's contribution to the proceedings has been described as particularly significant. Known throughout her royal career for her direct communication style and unwavering commitment to duty, she reportedly addressed Camilla with characteristic brevity and authority. Sources indicate that her intervention came at a crucial moment, providing what appeared to be family support for the king's difficult decision. The Princess Royal's words, though few, carried considerable weight given her respected position within the royal hierarchy and her reputation for putting institutional interests above personal considerations. Her statement was reportedly delivered with the kind of finality that left no room for debate or negotiation, emphasizing the irreversible nature of the decision that had been made. Prince William's role during the meeting has also been noted by those present. While he reportedly did not speak extensively during the proceedings, his presence and demeanor were described as providing crucial support for his father's position. Sources indicate that his silence was itself a form of communication, conveying his alignment with the king's decision through his composed but serious expression. The Prince of Wales's positioning during the meeting was seen by observers as particularly significant, given his status as heir to the throne. His visible support for the king's decision reportedly sent a clear message about unity within the senior ranks of the royal family on this matter, despite its personal cost to family relationships. As the meeting progressed, additional details emerged about the background to the king's decision. Sources indicate that evidence had been compiled over several months, documenting various concerns about Camilla's conduct and activities. This information was reportedly presented to the king by trusted advisors who had been monitoring the situation and had grown increasingly concerned about its potential impact on the monarchy. The documentation presented during the meeting allegedly included various forms of evidence suggesting behavior that went beyond the traditional boundaries of the queen consort role. While specific details were not extensively discussed during the gathering, sources indicate that the material was substantial enough to support the king's conviction that action needed to be taken to protect the integrity of the institution. The meeting concluded with what witnesses describe as a somber atmosphere, as the full implications of the decision began to resonate throughout the room. Staff members and advisors who had served the royal household for many years reportedly appeared shaken by what they had witnessed, recognizing that they had been present for a moment that would likely be remembered as a turning point in royal history. The immediate aftermath of the announcement saw rapid changes in palace procedures and protocols as staff began the complex process of implementing the king's decision. The speed and efficiency with which these changes were enacted suggested that considerable preparation had taken place behind the scenes, indicating that this was not a spontaneous decision, but rather the culmination of careful planning and consideration. The circumstances leading to King Charles's dramatic decision did not emerge overnight, but rather developed through a series of incidents and observations that gradually raised concerns among palace officials and senior royal family members. According to sources familiar with the situation, what began as seemingly minor deviations from traditional protocol eventually evolved into a pattern of behavior that palace insiders found increasingly troubling. Initial concerns reportedly centered around Camilla's growing involvement in discussions and meetings that traditionally would have been limited to the sovereign alone. Royal protocol, established over centuries of constitutional development, maintains clear boundaries regarding which members of the royal family participate in various types of official business. Sources indicate that these boundaries began to blur as Camilla's presence became more frequent in contexts where her participation was not traditionally expected. Palace staff members who had served through multiple reigns noted that Camilla's approach to her role appeared to differ significantly from that of previous consorts. While royal spouses have historically maintained supportive but clearly defined roles, sources suggest that Camilla began to take a more active interest in matters of policy and governance than had been customary for someone in her position. The shift was apparently gradual enough that it initially escaped widespread notice. Royal correspondents familiar with palace operations have noted that changes in protocol often occur slowly, making it difficult to identify exactly when normal procedures begin to be modified. However, over time, staff members began to observe patterns that suggested a departure from established norms regarding the Queen Consort's level of involvement in official matters. One area of particular concern involved Camilla's patronages and charitable activities. While royal family members traditionally engage with various organizations and causes, sources indicate that some of Camilla's choices appeared to align unusually closely with specific political or business interests. Royal protocol typically requires that such activities remain carefully neutral to avoid any appearance of the monarchy endorsing particular positions or benefiting specific groups inappropriately. The situation became more complex when reports emerged of private meetings between Camilla and various political figures and business leaders. These gatherings reportedly took place outside the normal channels of official royal engagements, raising questions about their purpose and the topics being discussed. Palace sources have indicated that such meetings, if they occurred as reported, would represent a significant departure from the careful political neutrality that the monarchy has maintained for generations. Constitutional experts who have studied the British monarchy's role in modern government have emphasized the critical importance of maintaining clear separation between the royal family and active political involvement. This principle, developed over centuries of constitutional evolution, serves to protect both the monarchy's legitimacy and the democratic process from inappropriate influence or interference. The delicate balance that allows the monarchy to coexist with democratic governance depends largely on public confidence that royal family members are not using their positions to advance personal agendas or to influence political outcomes. Any perception that this balance has been disrupted can potentially damage both individual reputations and the institution as a whole. Reports suggest that intelligence about Camilla's activities was compiled by palace security and administrative staff who became concerned about the potential implications of her expanding role. These officials, according to sources, felt obligated to document their observations and report them through appropriate channels to ensure that senior decision-makers were aware of the developing situation. The documentation process reportedly involved careful monitoring of Camilla's schedule, correspondence, and interactions with individuals outside the immediate royal circle. Palace security protocols typically include oversight of royal family members' activities for both safety and protocol compliance purposes, making such monitoring a normal part of palace operations, rather than targeted surveillance. As concerns mounted, the situation became increasingly complicated by the broader context of public opinion regarding Camilla's position within the royal family. Unlike previous consorts who had entered their roles without significant controversy, Camilla's path to Queen Consort status had been marked by decades of public debate and divided opinion, stemming from her relationship with Charles during his marriage to Princess Diana. The enduring public fascination with Princess Diana has created a unique dynamic within the royal family that affects how Camilla's actions and decisions are perceived and interpreted. Diana's tragic death in 1997 essentially froze her image in the public consciousness as a figure of compassion, accessibility, and dedication to charitable causes, This lasting legacy has created an implicit standard against which subsequent royal family members, particularly Camilla, are often measured. Royal historians have noted that Diana's approach to her royal role was characterized by direct engagement with people and causes, combined with careful attention to maintaining the monarchy's reputation for service and dedication. Her ability to connect with ordinary citizens while maintaining the dignity expected of her position created a template that subsequent royal family members have found challenging to match or exceed. The comparison between Diana and Camilla has been a persistent theme in media coverage and public discussion throughout Camilla's time in the royal family. This dynamic has created additional pressure on Camilla to demonstrate her worthiness for her position, while simultaneously navigating the complex expectations and protocols that govern royal behavior. Sources familiar with palace dynamics suggest that awareness of this public sentiment has influenced decision-making processes within the royal family, particularly regarding how various family members conduct themselves and the level of scrutiny applied to their activities. The need to maintain public confidence in the monarchy has reportedly become an increasingly important consideration in evaluating the appropriateness of various actions and decisions. The combination of concerns about protocol violations, questions regarding political neutrality, and the ongoing influence of Diana's legacy created what sources describe as a perfect storm of circumstances that ultimately led to King Charles's dramatic decision. Palace insiders suggest that the king found himself facing a situation where action was necessary to preserve both the integrity of the institution and his own credibility as a monarch committed to upholding constitutional principles. The complexity of the situation was further heightened by the personal relationships involved, as Charles was forced to weigh institutional concerns against his loyalty to his wife and partner of many years. This tension between personal and official responsibilities has historically presented challenges for monarchs throughout British history, requiring difficult choices between individual desires and institutional needs. The aftermath of King Charles's announcement reverberated far beyond the confines of the palace meeting room, creating immediate and lasting changes to the dynamics within the royal household and the broader institution of the monarchy. Sources close to the royal family indicate that the decision sent shockwaves through established relationships and created new tensions that continue to influence palace operations and family interactions. The immediate reaction from senior royal family members was reportedly mixed, with some expressing support for the king's decisive action, while others struggled to come to terms with the dramatic nature of the decision. According to palace insiders, the announcement created an atmosphere of uncertainty as family members and staff attempted to understand the full implications of what had transpired and how it would affect their own roles and responsibilities. Prince William's response to his father's decision has been described by sources as one of cautious support, though not without personal reservations about the potential consequences. As the heir to the throne, William reportedly understood the constitutional and institutional reasoning behind the king's action, but also recognized the personal cost to his father and the potential for public backlash that could affect the entire royal family. Reports suggest that William's primary concern centered on the need to maintain stability and public confidence in the monarchy during what was likely to be a turbulent period of adjustment. His position as future king required him to consider not only the immediate implications of the decision, but also its long-term effects on the institution he would one day inherit. Sources indicate that he viewed his role during this period as providing steady leadership and reassurance to both the royal household and the public. Princess Anne's reaction was reportedly more straightforward, consistent with her reputation for prioritizing duty and institutional integrity above personal considerations. According to those familiar with her response, she viewed the king's decision as a necessary action to protect the monarchy from potential damage, regardless of the personal difficulties it might create for individual family members. The Princess Royal's support for the decision was seen by palace observers as particularly significant, given her respected position within the royal family and her long-standing commitment to royal duty. Her endorsement reportedly provided important validation for the king's choice and helped to demonstrate family unity despite the controversial nature of the action taken. Behind the scenes, palace staff began the complex process of implementing the practical consequences of the king's decision. This involved numerous administrative and ceremonial adjustments that required careful coordination to ensure that all aspects of royal protocol were properly observed. Sources indicate that these changes were implemented with remarkable efficiency, suggesting that considerable preparation had taken place before the formal announcement was made. The logistical challenges of removing Camilla from her official role extended beyond simple administrative changes to encompass broader questions about her future position within the royal household and her continued relationship with various organizations and patronages. Palace officials reportedly worked to minimize disruption to ongoing royal activities, while ensuring that the king's decision was fully implemented across all areas of royal operations. One of the most significant challenges faced by palace administrators involved managing the public and media response to the announcement. Royal communications staff, according to sources, had prepared for various scenarios, but found themselves dealing with an unprecedented situation that required careful navigation to maintain the monarchy's reputation and credibility. The decision also had important implications for other members of the royal family, particularly those who had developed working relationships with Camilla through various charitable and ceremonial activities. Sources indicate that adjustments were necessary to ensure continuity in these areas, while respecting the king's decision regarding Camilla's changed status within the royal hierarchy. Reports from palace insiders suggest that the announcement created particularly complex dynamics regarding Camilla's children from her previous marriage, Tom Parker Bowles and Laura Lopes. While they had never held official royal titles, their connection to the royal family through their mother's marriage to the king had given them a certain status within royal circles that was now called into question. The situation regarding Camilla's extended family reportedly became a source of additional concern for palace officials, who were working to clarify the boundaries and expectations for various relationships and connections that had developed during Camilla's time as Queen Consort. These considerations required delicate handling to avoid creating further controversy or misunderstanding about the scope and implications of the king's decision. Constitutional experts and royal historians began analyzing the unprecedented nature of the king's action and its potential implications for the monarchy's future operations. Many noted that while the sovereign possessed the theoretical authority to make such decisions, the practical implementation of removing a consort's title represented uncharted territory in modern royal history. The legal and constitutional questions raised by the decision extended beyond immediate practical concerns to broader issues about the nature of royal authority and the limits of monarchical power in contemporary Britain. Some observers questioned whether such unilateral action by the sovereign was appropriate in a modern constitutional democracy, while others argued that the king was simply exercising legitimate authority to protect the institution he leads. International reactions to the decision varied considerably, with some Commonwealth countries expressing support for the king's action, while others raised questions about the implications for their own relationships with the British monarchy. Royal correspondents noted that the decision had potential ramifications beyond Britain's borders, affecting how the monarchy was perceived throughout the Commonwealth realms. The timing of the announcement also drew attention from political observers and commentators, who noted that it came during a period of broader discussion about the monarchy's role and relevance in contemporary society. Some viewed the king's decisive action as evidence of strong leadership and commitment to institutional integrity, while others saw it as potentially destabilizing at a time when the monarchy faced various external challenges. Media coverage of the decision was extensive and varied, with different outlets taking notably different approaches to analyzing and interpreting the king's action. The intense public interest in the story created additional pressure on the palace to manage communications carefully while maintaining appropriate dignity and discretion regarding internal family matters. Throughout this period of upheaval and adjustment, King Charles reportedly maintained his regular schedule of official duties and public appearances, demonstrating his commitment to continuing royal responsibilities, despite the personal and institutional challenges created by his decision. Sources indicate that he approached this period with characteristic determination to fulfill his constitutional obligations while managing the consequences of his dramatic action. The long-term implications of the king's decision continued to unfold as the royal household adapted to new realities and worked to establish stability following one of the most significant internal changes in recent royal history. The public response to King Charles's unprecedented decision revealed the deep divisions that continue to exist within British society regarding the royal family and its role in modern life. Opinion polls conducted in the immediate aftermath of the announcement showed a nation sharply split, with demographic and regional variations highlighting the complex nature of contemporary attitudes toward the monarchy. The decision sent ripples through communities across the United Kingdom and beyond, creating conversations in homes, workplaces, and public spaces about the nature of royal authority and the expectations placed upon those who hold positions within the institution. Supporters of the king's action were quick to express their approval through various channels, including social media platforms, traditional media outlets, and public demonstrations. Many of these individuals cited their belief that the decision represented a long overdue correction to what they viewed as an inappropriate elevation of Camilla to a position she had never deserved. Letters to newspaper editors and online comments frequently referenced Princess Diana, with many expressing the view that justice had finally been served for the late Princess of Wales. These supporters often emphasized their belief that the monarchy needed to prioritize its institutional integrity over personal relationships, viewing the king's decision as evidence of strong leadership during challenging circumstances. The enduring loyalty to Diana's memory proved to be one of the most significant factors shaping public reaction to the news. 26 years after her death, Diana continues to command remarkable devotion among certain segments of the British public, who have never fully accepted Camilla's integration into the royal family. For these individuals, the king's decision represented vindication of their long-held belief that Camilla's position within the monarchy was fundamentally illegitimate. Memorial flowers began appearing at Diana's former residence at Kensington Palace and at the site of her fatal car crash in Paris, as supporters saw the king's action as a form of posthumous recognition of Diana's rightful place in royal history. Social media platforms became battlegrounds for competing narratives about the decision and its implications. Hashtags supporting both sides of the debate trended globally, with users sharing memories of Diana, arguments about royal protocol, and predictions about the monarchy's future. The intensity of online discussion reflected the broader emotional investment that many people continue to have in royal family dynamics and decisions. Facebook groups dedicated to royal watching saw membership numbers surge as people sought spaces to discuss and debate the implications of the king's announcement. Twitter threads analyzing the decision garnered millions of views, with celebrity commentators and ordinary citizens alike offering their perspectives on what the action meant for the future of the monarchy. Conversely, those who opposed the king's action expressed their outrage with equal fervor. This group, while smaller in number, included individuals who viewed the decision as a betrayal of marriage vows and an inappropriate capitulation to public pressure. Many argued that the king's action demonstrated weakness rather than strength, and suggested that he had sacrificed his wife's dignity to protect his own position. These critics frequently pointed to the personal cost of such a public rejection and questioned whether any alleged transgressions could justify such harsh treatment of a spouse who had served the institution for many years. Critics of the decision frequently emphasized Camilla's years of dedicated service to various charitable causes and her gradual acceptance by significant portions of the British public. They pointed to her successful integration into royal duties following her marriage to Charles, and argued that stripping her of the Queen Consort title represented an unjust punishment for alleged transgressions that had not been clearly proven or publicly detailed. Organizations that had worked with Camilla in her royal capacity issued statements expressing disappointment with the decision and praising her commitment to their causes. Several charities reported receiving messages of support for Camilla from members of the public, who felt she had been treated unfairly. The media response to the announcement was extensive and varied, with different news organizations taking notably different editorial positions on the king's decision. Some outlets praised his decisive leadership and commitment to institutional integrity, while others questioned the wisdom of taking such dramatic action without a more transparent explanation of the underlying reasons. Tabloid newspapers devoted front-page coverage to the story for weeks, with competing headlines that reflected the divided nature of public opinion. Broadsheet publications offered more analytical coverage, featuring detailed examinations of the constitutional and historical implications of the king's action. Television news programs devoted extensive coverage to analyzing the decision and its implications, featuring panels of royal experts, constitutional historians, and political commentators offering diverse perspectives on the situation. The complexity of the issues involved ensured that these discussions continued for weeks following the initial announcement, keeping the story prominent in public discourse. Special documentary programs were quickly commissioned to explore the background to the decision and its place in the broader history of the British monarchy. News channels conducted extensive polling to gauge public opinion and track changes in sentiment as more information about the situation became available. International media coverage was equally intense, with news organizations around the world attempting to explain the significance of the decision to audiences who might not fully understand the intricacies of British royal protocol and constitutional arrangements. The global nature of interest in the story reflected the continued fascination with the British monarchy that exists in many countries, particularly those with historical connections to Britain. American news networks devoted significant airtime to covering the story, with royal correspondents providing context about the relationship between Charles and Camilla and its historical significance. European media outlets analyzed the decision in the context of their own monarchical traditions and constitutional arrangements. Commonwealth countries showed varied reactions to the news, with some expressing support for the king's decision, while others raised questions about its potential implications for their own relationships with the British Crown. Royal representatives in various Commonwealth realms found themselves fielding questions about whether the decision would affect ceremonial and constitutional arrangements in their respective countries. The Governor-General of Australia issued a statement confirming that the decision would not affect Australia's constitutional relationship with the British monarchy, while similar clarifications were provided by officials in Canada, New Zealand, and other Commonwealth nations. The economic implications of the decision also drew attention from business and tourism industry observers. Some analysts expressed concern that the controversy surrounding the announcement might negatively impact tourism to royal sites and Britain more generally, while others argued that increased media attention could potentially boost visitor numbers, as people sought to witness royal history in the making. London tour operators reported increased bookings for royal-themed tours in the weeks following the announcement, with visitors expressing particular interest in sites associated with both Diana and Camilla. Souvenir shops near royal palaces experienced increased demand for items related to the royal family, though they faced challenges in determining which products remained appropriate, given the changed circumstances. Within Britain, regional variations in public opinion became apparent as polling data emerged in the weeks following the announcement. Areas with traditionally strong monarchist sentiment showed higher levels of support for the king's decision, while regions with more Republican leanings were more likely to view the action as evidence of the monarchy's outdated and problematic nature. Scotland showed particularly complex patterns of response, with support for the decision varying significantly between different communities and demographic groups. Wales, where Charles had previously served as Prince of Wales, showed generally supportive reactions. though with notable exceptions in certain areas. The decision also sparked renewed debate about the broader role and relevance of the monarchy in contemporary British society. Republican organizations seized upon the controversy as evidence of the institution's inherent problems and called for more fundamental reforms to the country's constitutional arrangements. Monarchist groups, meanwhile, argued that the king's decisive action demonstrated the institution's ability to adapt and maintain its integrity in challenging circumstances. The debate extended beyond traditional political divisions, with supporters and critics of the monarchy found across party lines and social groups. Academic institutions and think tanks began organizing conferences and seminars to examine the constitutional and historical implications of the king's decision. Legal scholars debated whether the action established new precedents that might affect future royal succession and protocol decisions, while historians placed the events in the context of previous royal controversies and crises. Universities reported increased enrollment in courses dealing with constitutional monarchy and British political institutions as students sought to understand the broader context of the king's decision. Research projects were initiated to examine public reaction to the announcement and its implications for the monarchy's future relationship with British society. Religious leaders also weighed in on the debate, with some expressing support for the king's commitment to duty and institutional integrity, while others questioned the compassionate aspects of publicly removing a spouse's official title. The Church of England, given its special relationship with the monarchy, found itself in a particularly delicate position as it attempted to balance support for the sovereign with broader principles of forgiveness and reconciliation. The Archbishop of Canterbury issued a carefully worded statement calling for understanding and prayer for all members of the royal family during what he described as a difficult period of transition. The practical implementation of the king's decision required extensive coordination across multiple government departments and agencies. Official portraits needed to be updated, ceremonial protocols revised, and legal documents amended to reflect Camilla's changed status. The efficiency with which these changes were implemented suggested considerable advanced planning, though palace officials declined to comment on the timeline or process involved. Government websites were updated to reflect the new arrangements, and official correspondence was revised to ensure consistency with the king's decision. The College of Arms worked to update heraldic arrangements and ceremonial procedures to accommodate the changed circumstances. Educational institutions began incorporating discussion of the decision into courses on British history, politics, and constitutional law. The unprecedented nature of the action provided valuable case study material for students examining the evolution of monarchical authority and the relationship between traditional institutions and modern democratic society. School textbooks began including references to the decision as a significant moment in contemporary royal history, though publishers faced challenges in determining how to present the complex circumstances surrounding the king's action in age-appropriate ways. As weeks passed following the initial announcement, public attention gradually shifted from the immediate drama of the decision to broader questions about its long-term implications for the royal family and British society. Opinion polls showed that while initial reactions were sharply divided, public opinion appeared to be slowly consolidating around acceptance of the new reality, though significant minorities continued to express strong feelings in both directions. The lasting impact of King Charles's decision continues to unfold, with observers noting that it may represent a defining moment in his reign and a significant milestone in the ongoing evolution of the British monarchy's role in contemporary society.